Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to get an update from SSA and the Port of Oakland. So we're going to give people a minute or so to get all here. As with all HTA webinars, these are for educational purposes only. You cannot redistribute or repurpose them, but if you ever need to get a hold of the HTA or any of our panelists, you can always reach out to me, eric@harbortrucker.com. We've been through a lot of these now. You guys know how to use functions to ask questions and stuff, but just in case you don't, you have a little chat bar on the bottom. If anytime you have a question, just go ahead and type it in there. We're going to have a moderated Q&A section at the end, so I'll read them off for you. If you're just listening in by your phone and you won't see the app, so go ahead and email me your questions, eric@harbortrucker.com. Again, the format of this one is we're going to have SSA present. We'll have a brief Q&A for them following their presentation, and then we'll switch over to Port of Oakland, have their presentation, and then we'll have a complete audience Q&A panel, and a little bit of discussion. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Susan.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you to the Harbor Trucker Association. We really appreciate you setting this up and giving us an opportunity to give you an update on SSA. And I miss everybody on the call. I know most of you, so hopefully one day we'll be able to come out of our cocoons and get back together at some of our gatherings. I put together, Jim Rice is here, the general manager, to help answer some questions that you may have. We're going to go through a presentation. There's probably more data on the presentation than we need, but since it's going to be posted, I'll summarize through the slides. So having said that, we'll get started here. Hold on one second. Let's see. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get, oh, there we go. So can you all see the presentation, I hope? So I thought I'd start with terminal updates, which is what everyone's primarily interested in. One of the things that we have done recently is the mandatory export pre-arrival via emodal.com. We started the export on May 1st. Obviously, there's no appointments required. It's just some information put in. For those of you that do any refrigerated cargo, it's really important that you put your genset number in. We haven't been turning trucks for that, but they will be turned in the future. We're at about 70%. We started with a soft start, basically so that truckers could get used to using the application and we could work out any kinks we had in the system. So since that's been completed, we really need everybody to be inputting everything. We need to get up to 100% because we will start turning trucks. Mandatory empty pre-arrival will be starting Monday. So I know on the dual side, most of the empties are already being input, but for those of you that are either picking up or dropping off an empty solely as a single transaction, make sure you start putting those in eModal as well. Again, no appointment required, it's just pre-arrival. You can see from the picture, we've updated our pedestals. We put in all new kiosks, so no more phones. The drivers just press a button and the kiosks are much clearer. The appointment system, we haven't changed anything for the imports. I did want to point out that we're at a 96% success rate on our appointments, which means we only have a 4% missed appointment ratio, which is really good. So continue. If you make appointments and you don't need them or you change them, we ask that you please cancel them to make sure there's opportunity for other truckers to get them. As you all know, we've been posting for the last couple of months that we're increasing our gate fee from $30 to $35 effective July 6th. We promised you a 90-day notification, which we've done. Again, it's on all exports and imports. We've absorbed longshore increases over the last 4 years, and we've never had a rate increase on that fee. With the volumes down where we're at, I know there's discretionary gate closures, which is my next bullet point. We're closing on some Monday nights. We're reviewing that every week as we go through the process. But, as we all know, less volume, less gates, more money. So the $35, we feel like the $5 increment is fair. Especially since we've been absorbing the labor costs over the last 4 years and have never increased it. So on the discretionary gate closures, as you all know, I think we do not have a night gate this Monday night. We're very good at posting closures at least a week in advance when we can. We might have something that comes up sooner than that, but pretty much we're a week or further out. Due to the low volume and the blank sailings, we've had to, and low participation on certain nights of the week, we've decided just to close a night right now. I can tell you that we are constantly, Jim and his team are constantly working on, you know, how do we increase appointments during the day? How do we place equipment so that it's best utilized? So with the night closure, we have increased some day appointments. Honestly, yesterday we were wide open, so we really aren't seeing a lot or too many issues with getting appointments. COVID, no cases to date. All machines are sanitized between shifts. Per the PMA guidelines coastwide, option for a later start. I know 1 or 2 of the terminals kept their night gate hour. Most terminals shifted to 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. That being that SSA has a lot of equipment and we could not get it done in that, you know, we have to use that 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock hour to get that done. So that is why our gate hours are 7 p.m. now. Trouble booth phones were replaced with intercoms. We only allow 1 trucker at a time in the booth now, and we did set up social distancing line spacing for the truckers outside the booth with K-rail and markings on the ground, and we do request truckers to wear masks at the terminal. We still have our import program, shippers transport dray program. We're doing about 1,200 a week. Obviously, the more volume we get, the higher that number will go. They are still only draying on the night shift only, pre-mounted, no appointments needed. That just gives you the address and it will be posted out on all your inquiries regarding anything at Shippers Transport. The free flow program we are still doing. We're at approximately about 1,000 a week. With volumes a little lower, there may be less now. We do have a 30 minimum requirement. I put 20s discretionary on there because 20s have to be discharged off the ship in pairs, so they really need to be next to each other for us to be able to do that. I would say primarily most of the programs for 40-foot containers, but for those of you that are not using it and have large customers or can consolidate your customs, that is really the way to go. It keeps the containers out of the import lanes. It expedites delivery. Obviously, there's no appointments needed. It is not container specific, so you know, if you're looking to come in and ask for a specific container, you can't do that with a free flow. But it seems to be a really successful program that we've had going for a few years now, and we ask that we keep it up. All of these, both these programs keep less traffic in the import lanes, and how it helps the exporters and everybody else is it just keeps truck traffic to a minimum. So it helps the entire terminal. Sorry about that. Hold on. I wanted to show this slide because I've noticed on several instances, different various avenues have showed the truck turn times from the Port of Oakland, and it always shows SSA a little higher. So I wanted to have you take a look at this. I ran truck turn times from May 1st to May 31st, and I wanted to point out the number. So we're running at about 80 minutes for a dual transaction, by the way. And if we are running a little bit higher than some of the other terminals, I'd like to have you look at the truck count. So we are doing 3 times the business of TrayPack and 4 times the business of Everport. So really our truck turn times are pretty good for the amount of volume that we have coming through our terminal. All of the results are a result of the appointment system, the night gates, the dray off programs, everything we've done. Now the pre-arrival. So I took this picture yesterday on the street, and yes, it's one day, but I can tell you that it's pretty much what our streets look like these days. Obviously, we're going to have a day where something's happening and it's causing more truck traffic on the street, but on average, this is pretty much what our streets look like now. So when I'm looking at truck turn times, I'm happy to say that the trucks are not sitting on the street for hours on end. I thought this would be a good quick slide to go through. It just kind of shows you where we're at today. It's a real balance of export, empty, and import. About 72% of cargo is going on the day shift. 28% on the night shift. That 28% is a little high because that includes our shippers transport. So if you took that out, it would be a little lower. Obviously, we want more shift on the night side. We wouldn't have to close our night gates, but we understand the volume is down. But as the volume increases, we're really going to need truckers to utilize the night gate more. Here's our gate moves, both shifts, pretty good, January through May. You can see that we have done a pretty good drop from January through current. Again, that's for a variety of, the blank sailings, which I'll get into in another slide. We're averaging about 5,500 gate moves on both shifts. Obviously, back in July, we were up over 6,000. Probably this month in June, we're going to see that a little less, but that is an average of both shifts. We're real excited about this on the transtainers, and for those of you on the call that really don't know what this piece of machine is, this is what delivers your imports in the lanes. So we took out the diesel motors or engines and we swapped them for batteries to power the generators. So it says fuel usage 3/4 of a gallon per hour. That's compared to 10 to 12 gallons per hour. So it not only helps save money, obviously, it also eliminated 90% emissions into the air. Vessel updates. We have seen a 6% decrease in vessel calls. China tariffs, COVID-19 challenges, vessel schedule changes, and blank sailings are all part of that. The 2M lines TP8 service is omitting Oakland until July. I want to say they left maybe in March. The CMA's PRX service is omitting Oakland until the end of the year. I can tell you on these two services, it doesn't mean that all the volume went away. It basically means some of the volume shifted to some of the other services, but definitely it was a lower count. On the bright side, we did gain a new service. The One Line's new FP2 service is calling SSA, and that's a 14,000 TEU ship. We got to utilize our cranes that we upgraded not too long ago, and we look forward to more large ships like this. Vessel productivity has been really good. We're seeing an uptick on vessel productivity, and the labor has been fabulous here. We've had no labor issues whatsoever. They're showing up to work and they're working hard, so we're very thankful for that. We are getting new ZPM cranes, which I've got, or new ZPMC cranes, which will be on the next slide. These are SSA owned cranes in lieu of the Port of Oakland cranes. So here they are. These are our fabulous new cranes that are sitting in China right now, still waiting to be completed. They're supposed to be arriving September 14th. They should be up and operating by January of 2020. They are going to be 174 feet, which is going to allow us to tier up higher on the vessels and be able to work these big mega ships that are coming in. We're very excited. Plus, they'll be able to go 24 across. So not too long ago, we had a CMA ship come in here that was 19,000 TEU. We did use our upgraded cranes that we raised here to 141 feet. But when those 19,000 TEU ships and up come in, now we're going to have these big mega cranes to be able to handle them. Just a shout out, Propeller Club is doing a ZPMC seminar. They'll be speaking on June 16th. If you want to get a little more articulate on the cranes, it's kind of a fun thing to go. So, go to the Propeller Club and sign up. I think it will be good to hear about the cranes in general. So ending this, we have a total of 10 cranes. So basically 7 cranes total will have either been raised or larger. So that only leaves us about 3 cranes of the smaller cranes. And again, I want to say that SSA put in about $35 million investment on our 3 new cranes. So we're very excited about that. And which means this is why we need that turning basin down there at Howard Terminal. This investment is huge for us. If we can't turn those big ships, that'll be a problem. Right here, ERDs. ERDs is a big subject everywhere I go. I know Rebecca Dye talks about it. There's a lot of people that bring it up. So I felt like I wanted to do a quick slide on it just to kind of tell you what we do here at SSA. We have a 4-day receiving window. The ERDs are updated by the terminal mostly because of vessel delays. So I can tell you, I know in the past there's been some issues with updates. Right now, we've put a process in where no updates are done after 7 a.m. and no same day vessels. So let's say a ship is coming in late and we find out and you guys have already dispatched your truckers, we're not going to flip it until the next day so that the truckers that are already dispatched, we can let them in. I can tell you that the ERDs are communicated to the line. Vessel cutoffs are determined by the line. They are not determined by the terminal. And I think that's really important because I get a lot of emails and a lot of questions about why aren't you changing your cutoff? That is a question for your shipping line. So once we change the ERDs, we communicate that to the line, and we also update our website, which everybody can go to. So all I can say is if we've changed the ERD and the shipping line has not changed their cutoff, then it behooves you to go to the shipping line, number one, and ask them to change it if they can, and number two, if they can't, to tell you at least why, because we won't have that answer. Most of you already see this. This is at b58.tideworks.com/forecast. Everybody on this call and all of your customers should have this website. Since we get vessel information usually a week or so in advance, this is why we have our estimated receiving. Estimated receiving means when these ships have sailed. It doesn't mean they're not going to change in time. So this is really the only one that you need to be looking at to bring cargo in. Sometimes people are looking down here at this estimated receiving and using that as a in stone, but really these ships, these are the ones that are mostly going to change. So keep an eye on the estimated receiving. And terminal contacts, website should really be the first terminal contact as far as information on cutoffs, information on your imports, there's so much information on our website that can be found without having to come to the terminal. I do realize there are instances where people need to come to the terminal or are concerned about their cargo clearances, ERDs. If you could please use OICT customer support as your first point of reference, that would be wonderful. Those are during the day hours. We tend to get a lot of emails that has every single solitary email group that we have, which is about 50 people. And most of the time customer support can answer that. We're just trying to minimize emails that are going out to the yard because they're out there trying to run the yard. So whatever we can handle upstairs without bothering the yard would be a great thing. Obviously, all know where I am. You're always welcome to come to me with something. If you feel like customer support is not answering something, please escalate to me. I'm always available, you know that. OICT night gates, please differentiate between the two because we are hopefully going to see an uptick in our night gate. All these people are sleeping except for maybe me and Jim probably, but OICT night gates after 6 o'clock, you don't need to add the yard on there anymore, just or add customer support service. OICT night gates will handle it. SLC customer support is a backup to customer service. So between the hours of like 5 and 6 o'clock, they're taking over the customer support box. But on the night gate side, if you've got something with a booking or you have something that really isn't terminal related, make sure you add SLC customer service because they have someone there until 4 in the morning as well. So Eric, that's it for me. I don't know if anyone has immediate questions or we want to wait until Andy's done.
So I'm going to get Andrew queued up. If there's any questions right now, go ahead and submit them to the question box and we'll address them now. But we are going to also have a full Q&A session following Andrew. So let me just get his presentation up for a moment. And I don't see any questions in. So Andrew, you can go ahead and unmute your mic and we'll get you set up.
So Eric, can I close my presentation now so I can see Andy's?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Andrew,
yep, I'm here. So I wasn't sure if you had my presentation. There we go. Perfect. So thank you, everybody. I always enjoy the opportunity to speak in front of the HTA. My apologies. I'm having some technical difficulty, so I was only able to call in. But I do want to run through the numbers for May that were released earlier this week, and it just overall it's an ugly picture, but it was not unexpected, just based on the trending that we were seeing. So slide here, very self-explanatory. Our full imports are down 5.4%, calendar year over year. And the exports are still positive at 0.8%. So this is the full year through May of 2020. When you compare May versus last May, though, that's where a little bit of the bad news is. Imports are down about 15%, which is in line with about the amount of sales canceled sailings that we saw. Exports being down 10.7% there's a silver lining, meaning that the exports are still there is still demand for our exports, even though the raw number is down. And the nice thing is that our average TEU per vessel, though, is up 3.8% compared to 2019. So across all services, 28 calls a week, we're averaging about 1,830 TEUs off and on per vessel. Obviously, the larger Trans-Pacific services are seeing more volume, where some of the smaller Latin America and Europe services are seeing a little bit less volume on and off per call, but it's a positive trend. Off to the next slide. Here are some of the trends that we have been seeing. China far and away is the largest. So a 7.1% decline, though seemingly not as bad as, say, Japan, as an example. The magnitude of the 7.1% is very large. I would estimate that right now China will account for about 50% of what the imports are coming into Oakland. As you see the other countries, Hong Kong, between the civil unrest and SARS, Italy was locked down before even the U.S. was locked down. So it's a pretty good indicator as to why there are decreases. Conversely, though, we saw some positives. Taiwan is up 11.4%, South Korea 26.6%, and you see a migration into Southeast Asia. And surprisingly, Panama was a double-digit increase, and a lot of this is on imports of refrigerated product. Next slide. Now to the exports. We're continuing to see very strong trends in auto exports, meat exports, and dairies and seeds. But the fall in our main commodities, particularly dry fruits and nuts, produce and cereals, which is going to be grains and rice, they were somewhat anticipated. What happened in dry fruits and nuts was due to China's the trade war and the coronavirus in China. A lot of our exporters had to find new markets, and we're talking in March. So as they found new markets, they shifted business all the way into, a lot into India, for example, except that India got shut down as an entire country. So many of our exporters, such as the almond people, have boxes sitting in India on the dock, and force majeure has been declared, which now has created some difficulties because a lot of sales contracts are now null and void and are going to be renegotiated. So this is a very understandable trend, though we don't like to see it, and we hope that it gets reversed as we see June numbers. Next slide. Blank sailings. This is what we have confirmed and announced. Looking at Susan's slide, I think there's one service that has not been put on. We're always a little bit cautious until we can confirm with all carriers within an alliance to put it out, only because we would rather err on the side of being conservative and not announcing, especially if we're 6, 7, 8 weeks out. But based on what we're seeing right now, we're anticipating that June will have 14 blank sailings, 8 blank sailings for July, and 4 blank sailings for August. The caveat here is that the Oceans Alliance has not fully announced their void sailing plans yet, and we are eagerly anticipating it so that we can make sure that our shippers fully understand. what that magnitude is. But as I was reading this morning, the spot rates coming out of Asia on imports, which drives all carrier decisions, is above $2,000. And that level has not been seen in about 15 years, which indicates that there is a lot more demand and capacity. So hopefully the carriers will take that into consideration and not blank as many sailings as we move forward. Again, the second peak that we are starting to see with the coronavirus has a lot of people very worried. And yesterday's stock market drop plus today's stock market rise is a very telling indicator of the uncertainty as we move forward. Next slide. Just trying to give some forecasts to the market. The peers came out this week with some overall forecasts, what they're seeing across the board between carriers and shippers in their conversations. They're predicting year over year to be down about 13%. But as you see, as we get into the fall, they feel like the recovery is going to be coming slowly but surely, where they're predicting a 17.4% decline in July, and that being whittled down to about 8% in August. And these are year-over-year numbers for the month. So this is what they are predicting based on forward conversations with the carriers and shippers. Not the best news, but at least it's trending in the right direction. But I'll be the first to tell you is a lot of this is speculation because we don't know what this second peak of the coronavirus could potentially look like. On the export side, it's even more difficult. There's been a lot more sword rattling, saber rattling in the last few weeks with regards to China's move in Hong Kong, as well as the blame for the coronavirus. And so interestingly enough, though, we are seeing that China has actually ramped up their purchases of U.S. soybeans. And a lot of that is due to the Brazil stock being tightened up and the strength of the Brazilian real. So it's making the Brazilian product more expensive. So they're shifting a lot of purchases to the U.S. despite all the saber rattling that's going on. We're coming up to the grape season here in California, probably in about 6 weeks. And there was a lot of hope that we were going to see large volumes of grape going into China, but that's up in the air. I mentioned earlier on, almonds shifted away from China to India, which is under lockdown. So there is still a lot of variables, and it's very, very difficult right now to predict where the exports are going to go. Unfortunately, I can't give any clear indicator from the experts that we talk to. But I at least wanted to put some topics on the table for people to chew on. And that's my last slide. So thank you very much for listening to the numbers.
Thank you, Andrew. Let me get things set up. So we're going to go into our Q&A portion now. So if you have any questions for our presenters, go ahead and enter them into the chat box. Or, if any of our panelists want to comment on something they've seen on the other slides, we can go with that. Do you guys have any discussion between you guys that you wanted to kick it off with?
I think, Jim, do you have anything you want to say?
No, I think the slides, I think you can hear myself through Susan's audio. As far as the vessels, I know the blank sailings is always a key topic, and we are seeing the vessels that are full. We are seeing they are overbooked. So you might see some of the bookings close. What we do is we get the confirmation from the lines. If a particular booking is overbooked, they want to roll cargo. So what happens for us, if we continue receiving the cargo, the piles just keep getting fuller. And obviously there's a charge to roll this cargo. So you might see some of that happening more so now than ever because of the capacity on the ships. The vessels that we get are coming from LA Long Beach, Seattle Tacoma, so they're filling them up in LA Long Beach. We are rehandling a lot of boxes here, making space, moving empties around, but I expect that to be a little bit more because of the demand now and less ships in the rotations. So that's one point with the vessels. As far as the terminal goes, I think Susan did mention the relationship with the union has been very strong. You know, we did have some disagreements with the COVID sanitation processes, and that was elevated to the coast level. And LA Long Beach did shift to that 1900 start. Here at SSA, because of the equipment, we did that as well. Some of the other terminals did not. But for us, you operate with the size and with the amount of equipment, it just makes sense. We needed to do that. So we'll continue to do that. Also, down south, they're doing that, but we haven't really heard. I believe it's until June 21st is the PMA and the coast next meeting. That's when it's been extended to. So for now, we'll wait and see from the next meetings, the next PMA news comes our way. But yeah, our vessels are working good, yards working good. It's pretty much, you know, again, nothing else really to add to the slides. We're excited about the new cranes and, you know, bigger ships. So.
Great. So we got some questions that rolled in and a couple of hands up. Let me first start with the blank sailings. How is the equipment balance right now? Empties, reefers, etc.
I could take that question. Well, if Jim wants to take the question, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the equipment imbalances, I mean, again, it just depends on availability of refrigerated cargo, but we do see a lot of repositioning from LA. We see repositioning of dry boxes. If the imports are drying up here, for example, we see certain lines reposition empties via the rail and also coastal empties to backfill with the voids at the import. So equipment wise, the blank sailing, we really haven't seen it here because we do have the acreage to house the empties. We did see some of the lines get over allocations. So again, equipment looks good, chassis look good on our end of what we're seeing.
Great. If it's okay with you guys, one of our audience members, Scott Taylor, has his hands up. It's okay. I'm gonna unmute him.
Hey, Scott.
All right. Give me 1 second to get him up. Scott, are you able to speak?
I think so.
Yep,
If
we can
you
hear
me. All right. You can't see me, Susan and Jim, but I'm waving my hand.
All right, we're waving right back at you.
Now, just real quickly, hey, listen, I'm not that close to the day-to-day operations, but I just want to compliment you guys on the way you operate your terminal and the fact that the communication between companies is just fantastic. I see Brandon's much closer to it than I am, but the way you people handle the free flows and just your general communication is outstanding, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Scott.
We had a question about making Oakland a first port of call. Can either Andrew or you guys comment on making Oakland be the first port of call for some vessels?
That's
Or
probably an
efforts
Andrew.
Yep, let me take that question. So I've had many conversations with stakeholders here at the port in my 3 months here at the port, and I understand that is absolutely a priority for the growth engine for the Port of Oakland. And we're looking at 3 prongs with this. Number one is going to be obviously the shipping lines, getting them to want to do a first call. Now that's going to also then be driven by the second prong, which is the importers. The importers here will have to demonstrate a need or a desire and what kind of growth will come with the first call. And then the third part is establishing connectivity to the IPI destinations. which I think there's a lot of work to be done on all three. From a port perspective, we have already begun conversations with parties within each of these three prongs. And there's already been a lot of very good work that has already been done over the last few years. So we're picking up where we left off, and have already engaged the railroads. We will be engaging the shipping lines as we come out of the coronavirus. Some of these conversations are more suited to face-to-face than a Zoom call or a conference call. And so there are plans to put forth a value proposition to all the parties to get a first call. So this is one of the priorities that we are working for from the port perspective.
Thank you, Andrew. If there's more questions, go ahead and send them in. Give me 1 second, because some of them are coming via email. Regarding ERDs, I think we did touch on it, audience member, about if you turn in your container at a certain date and the ERD gets rolled over.
Right.
But we're also going to make the SSA slides, and if Andrew's okay with it, we can make his slides available too after it. I know we went a little bit quickly through them, but they will be made available after the call. Anyone else in the audience got any questions for either of our panelists?
So I want to clarify one thing for the ERD. As Jim mentioned, there's a roll cost, and that's in general with the steamship lines and the customer. But if a container is in-gated, because we do a 4-day receiving, so if a container is in-gated and then it rolls, as far as because I hear a lot about detention and demurrage on exports, there is a 10-day. So even if if we have a 4-day receiving and the container rolls, it's not going to get charged any on-terminal detention for the container itself until that 11th day.
Yeah. So those were the majority of the email questions.
Right.
Were on
I just
the
wanted
ERD.
to clarify that because there's a difference between a roll charge and detention charges.
Yeah. I'll put up that last call for questions because I don't seem to have any other ones that weren't addressed already. But I wanted to thank you guys for coming
Eric,
with us.
I do have one comment. So this morning, the press release went out for the hiring of the new maritime director here at the port. It's an individual by the name of Brian Brandis, who I think many people in the port community might be very familiar with. So that announcement went out this morning, and I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of this.
Great. I'm glad to hear that we got somebody good over there coming in. We're happy.
And who knows terminal operations.
Yeah. Thank you guys both, or all three of you, for coming here today and presenting to us, guys. Yeah, we got some comments rolling in saying, great hire. We're happy to hear about that. Yeah, I'm with the new cranes. Okay. We had a question come in. With the new cranes, this would be good advertising for first protocol. So that was a comment that rolled in. Yeah,
it would.
The HTA is always here to kind of help in any way we can as well. So if you ever wanted to reach out to us for some efforts, we're always here, and we're always in close contact anyway. So we haven't gotten any more rolling in right now, so I'm going to go ahead and say, let's do some final closing stuff. Thank you guys for coming here today. We really appreciate you guys presenting to us. We like the open communication. You guys are great partners, and we hope that we're great partners for you too. If you ever need anything from us, go ahead and ask. And if you have questions for the webinar, or if you need to get a hold of any of these people that you don't have their email, go ahead and just email me, eric@harbortrucker.com, and I'll pass your info along. And with that, I would like to thank everybody for attending today. And, looking forward to getting that first protocol for us over here in Oakland. All right.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.